Good morning. Welcome to the Science of Mind class this morning here at CSLDallas. I'm Dr. Petra Weldis, and we are in the chapter called Our Relationship to the Spiritual Universe, Humanity or a Human Being's Relationship to the Spiritual Universe. Of course, we know that Ernest Holmes uses the word man to mean everyone, every person, or humanity, or humankind. And so we're on page 107. The world has learned all it should through suffering. And always an interesting conversation. And so this is the very bottom of this page. We have shown that our nature is the same as God's nature. We should have no intellectual difficulty in realizing that an infinite intelligence could not make an automatic individuality. And this explains why we suffer on our road to self-discovery. Our suffering is not God-ordained because we create our own reality as we become individualized. By individuality is meant self-choice, volition, conscious mind, personified spirit, complete freedom, and a power to back up that freedom. We cannot imagine a mechanical or unspontaneous individuality to be real and free. Individuality must be created in the image of perfection and let alone to make the great discovery for itself. This is such an amazingly challenging and extraordinary idea. And yet, if we parse it out, we really see the opening that's provided here. And we see that Ernest Holmes is forever trying to get us to understand our true nature outside of and beyond the human condition that we may be experiencing of limitation and cultural impact and personal trauma. But to understand that there is a deeper truth about who we are and what we're about. So this idea that our nature is the same as God's, we should have no intellectual difficulty in realizing that an infinite intelligence could not make an automatic individuality. That's the first part. And this explains why we suffer on our road to self-discovery. So the first part. So let's ask ourselves, what would an automatic individuality look like? A robot. Something that is required, that looks like it's an individual, but is required to do whatever instruction or information it's given. Another idea about this automatic nature of expression might be when we think about plants, rocks, minerals, atoms, plants. Up until a certain level of self-awareness and self-discovery, there's very little choice to be anything different than the way that, shall we say, species is designed. So a fir tree cannot all of a sudden decide it would like to lose its leaves in the winter because the oak trees look so much prettier. The fir tree can't decide, wow, my seed got planted in an area that maybe isn't as good for me as I would like it to be. I feel a little spindly and sickly. I'd like to move over there to that hillside where the fir trees are actually growing better. It can't. They've demonstrated and shown pack animals, herd animals, if they lose their pack or their herd and their sense of connection, they really struggle to survive because they are designed to be in packs and herds. If they're predators, They have a different set of ways of engaging, right? And so these are what we would call sort of automatic, instinctual ways of being in the world. Whereas the truth is, we have much, much, much more freedom. We can pick up and move. We can say, I'm not going to become a blacksmith like my father. We can have children. We can say we don't want children. We can get married or not married. There's so many places and ways where we have this whole other ability to express. And what are we expressing? Self-choice, volition, conscious mind, personified spirit, complete freedom, and a power to back up that freedom. Now, even if we are aligning ourselves with the peace or the joy or the love that is spirit, and we're allowing that to flow through us, do you see? That's still a choice. Because we could choose not to do that. We could choose to be angry, unforgiving. We could choose to believe that the world was out to get us. Whether that's a conscious choice or a choice that we have absorbed, if we don't change it, that is the freedom that we have. We have the freedom to believe anything we choose to believe, and we have the freedom to act upon it. This freedom is what both frees us and binds us. This very freedom is what allows the feedback of the world in which we live, our own personal world in which we live, to feed back to us the outcome of those things that are not automatic. Self-choice, volition, conscious mind, personified spirit, complete freedom, and a power to back up that freedom. Now, granted, if we are not consciously paying attention to the ways in which we are believing, thinking, and behaving that are not in alignment with who we want to be, we are on automatic. We are on autopilot. And when we are on autopilot, we are not on the road to self-discovery. What sometimes, for a lot of people, come on in, and for most people, move us onto a road of self-discovery, either we get really inspired by somebody's life or somebody's reading or somebody's book, and we think, I want that, or we get sick and tired of being sick and tired. Right? And in both cases, we are waking up to the fact that we've actually been running on autopilot. We've actually been running as if we were an automatic individual. But we're not. And so ultimately, we take responsibility for the fact that we've been on autopilot, and we begin slowly but surely examining our beliefs, examining our choices, and asking ourselves, one, do they fulfill us? And two, are they in alignment with the way this personified spirit is actually seeking to express itself as us? Are we aligning ourselves with love as opposed to abuse? Are we aligning ourselves with connection and there's good enough for everyone as opposed to greed? What are we aligning ourselves with? But the kicker here is you can choose greed. You can. And life will play that out. We can choose fear. We can, even if it's not a conscious choice, do you see we're choosing it until we choose something else, until we wake up. That's why it's this idea of, this explains why we suffer on our road to self-discovery. Because what we're discovering is our freedom. What we're discovering is our ability to choose. What we're discovering is that deciding not to choose is itself a choice and leaves us on autopilot. And so all of that suffering, if we are willing to allow it, is what wakes us up, moves us into self-discovery. Who are we really? Why is this happening? Can I do anything about it? And we begin, if we choose, to learn, to look around, and to read, study, be inspired, find things that allow us to express this freedom. We cannot imagine a mechanical or unspontaneous individuality to be real and free. So we could actually think about the organs in our own body. It would be a very bad thing if your liver did not automatically know how to do what it was supposed to do. That would be a very bad thing.
Only for a short time.
Right, and then you'd be done. Right? It would be a bad thing if the cells in your body didn't actually know how to heal a bone, how to heal a cut, how to heal a hurt of some sort, right? Because all of those things are automatic, or another way of saying it is inherent within the intelligence of the cells and the bones and the organs. But it's automatic. The liver can't get up and walk out. The liver can't say, "Wait, you're drinking way too much. You are killing me. I'm done. I'm gonna walk out. I'm gonna go live over there with that other person." Do you see? That's what it means by automatic. We don't want to get overly hung up on. It's not just mechanical. It's not just mechanical, right? It's the idea that it can only do what it's designed to do. Now, we can do a lot of things we're not designed to do, right? We're not designed to hate. We're not designed to be violent. We're not designed to be awful to people that we care about. We're not designed that way. Not inherently, essentially, it's not our truth. But we can certainly behave that way. We sure as heck can. And so this is so important to recognize that we are free. And every time that we find ourselves in a place where we feel stuck or unable to move or unable to change, or we feel as though there's nothing I can do about whatever's going on, right? We have abdicated our freedom, which is our ability to choose. Now, we can choose many things. We have many choices, and they're not always the same. Sometimes our choice is to make a new move, think a new thought, change our perspective, see it differently, align with spirit, decide what we want and go for it, keep at it and don't give up, change our mind, try something new. Do you see? These are all the choices that are constantly available to us. And we have the freedom to assess the benefits or consequences of any choice that we are making or any way in which we are moving in the world. We are able to assess the consequences and benefits of that and then make new choices, right? So I'll make one example of this. Years and years and years ago, I was part of the leadership of our parent organization, Centers for Spiritual Living. I'd helped bring in a whole new organizational design. I was the chair of the first core council, and really having a lot of fun with trying to figure out how to birth this new organization with our then spiritual leader, Kathy Hearn. And it was hard, and it was meaningful, and it was tiring, and it felt like we were moving the needle. So after 3 years, my term was up, and they wanted me to run again because they wanted me to be chair again. The problem is my son had hit puberty. And while I may have thought he needed me at home when he was little, I really understood he needed me to be around. And so I made the choice to what is popularly known as to get on the mommy track. I stopped pursuing that aspect of my career, and I chose to be home with my son and his friends. Have not regretted that choice one bit. Super fun. I'm weird. I just love teenagers. I think teenagers are the coolest people on the planet. So my house, of course, was the hangout, the teenage hangout. That's what we did. And we had all kinds of shenanigans and all sorts of fun. And I was the one that all the girls came to when they were starting to decide what they were going to do about the boys they were interested in, all that stuff. But that was a clear choice. Each of them had outcomes. Each of them had opportunities. Each of them had consequences. Each of them had benefits. And it was no one's choice but my own. I had the freedom to make that choice. And rather than blaming one or the other, do you see? Not a victim of either one of those things. It was an opportunity to decide about my life. And I was free to do so. There do appear to be some choices that we don't seem to have freedom in, and that's where we begin to understand that we have a freedom of our perspective, we have the freedom of our response, we have the freedom of how we're going to see the people that we're engaged with, right? But we don't want to leave it always only at the side of perspective, nor always only at the side of, well, just make a new choice and do something different, right? It's the whole gamut of the kinds of choices that are available to us, and we're responsible for every single one of them that we make, which is the bad news. But the good news is, if we don't take responsibility for it, we can never make a new choice. We are forever on autopilot as a victim of the circumstance. And so the suffering, when the title of this little section is, we've learned all we can from suffering, sometimes I think that's really an affirmation. Let's have learned all we can from suffering, shall we? Let's own the fact that we are, in fact, individuals that are not automatic, mechanical reproductions of a human being. All right. So we're going to stop there. Let's talk about, share a story about when you really exercised this freedom. Maybe it was fun, maybe it was hard. What challenge do you have with this? Is there an area or a situation in which you find this really challenging? Or what question do you have about it philosophically? So we have a question in the room, but we're going to start out by saying good morning to Ryan and seeing what else is going on.
Well, good morning to you too, Dr. Petra, and good morning to everybody here in person on the campus of CSLDallas, and to all of those who are watching us via Zoom and via Facebook. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're at.
Wherever you are in the world.
Community with us today. Yes. And so, as Dr. Petra was explaining, we'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and comments. If you would like to do so, here in the room, I have our rock star over here, Patrick, who is helping out with the microphone, along with our iconic Richard, who's helping out with the video. And so just raise your hand, and for the folks I'm waving my hand to, you will be on camera, so just heads up. If you'd like to not be on camera, you can move over here to my left, and we won't see you, but we'll still hear you. And for those who are joining us via I'll go to Zoom. For those who are joining us on Zoom, you can hit the raise your hand icon located down below under the reactions tab, or you can send me sweet messages inside of the chat, and I can bring those into the room as well, as goes for those who are joining us on Facebook Live. And I always like to mention I keep the chats anonymous. That way we can continue to have a safe container for spiritual growth. So we'll go here into the room, and if you want to just say your name and say your question.
Hi, my name is Carmen. It's not a question. It's just the process I've been through since I've been here at CSLDallas. And
can you put your microphone just a little closer? It's really for the people online.
Okay. And so I wanted to say my background is in I use backgrounds in Christian, and I never accepted my choices because the things that I did that was not right was a sin. I blamed the devil, or I blamed other things, and so I really couldn't take responsibility of the choices that I made. And now that I'm here at CSLDallas, well, let me take it a step back. And also that wouldn't allow me to accept who I am. And so that brought me down as a person for not being able to saying that I made these choices or these decisions. And now that I've been here at CSLDallas, it made me look at the choices that I made. And how you said certain choices were benefits, consequences, and things like that. But the bottom line, my point is that now I'm able to look at them and accept them. Accepting them is accepting who I am.
Yes.
And so now I'm learning to love myself more and accept myself more, because now I can actually say those choices I made. And it made me who I am today. So I just wanted to say that.
Beautiful. Thank you. I love that, Carmen. And these are some of the paradoxes, right? The paradox of discipline, it really is the road to freedom. And the paradox that taking responsibility, even for the crappy choices that we thought we didn't have any choice about, or that we were just unconscious about the fact that we were making poor choices, the fact that we take responsibility for it, as hard as it is, gives us access to ourselves in a whole new way. Because now I see, oh my God, but I could now choose something different, right? And so as painful as it may be sometimes to own, and not all choices are conscious, right? So we want to be careful about that. But sometimes we're just on autopilot. So we unconsciously respond, we do something that has really negative consequences. But now we're awake to it. And if nothing else, we can say, don't do that again. Let's do it differently, right? But without taking responsibility, that isn't available. So thank you, Carmen. That was really beautifully expressed. Good for you. Thank you so much. All right.
Hi, Kate.
Hi, Kate.
I was curious if you can speak to the scientists who argue that there is no free will, that we are always acting as a result of the chemical reactions in our brain based on our environments and our upbringing.
Well, those scientists generally come out of Skinner's behavioralism, which comes out of a very materialistic viewpoint of life, right? And it comes in a whole host of conversations that says our consciousness is just the ghost in the machine, right? That our consciousness is just somehow a byproduct of the synapses moving in our brains. And it's an illusion, right? And so that is a way of looking at life. There is a whole host of other ways of looking at life, whether they're religious, philosophical, scientific, or psychological, that would argue that that's not the case. That in fact, it is what's happening in the mind, the thought, that is the thing that triggers the cascade of chemicals, right? And so if we go to let's say we go to the fight or flight, what do I want to say? Instinctive response, right? It's called the amygdala hijack. Why is it called that? It's because the amygdala is responding to a perceived threat. The operative word is responding to a perceived threat. Well, that perception is not being made by the amygdala on the inside of your brain. It's actually the way something is coming into the senses, and what we are deciding about what's coming in, that nanosecond synaptic thought that we have in response, right? And if we're on autopilot, that nanosecond of a synaptic response is going to be automatic. It's going to be based on our habitual ways of thinking and believing about the world, which are the patterns that have been laid down from our culture, our childhood, right, and everything else. But as we are able to get a hold of that gap between stimulus and response, we have the option of interrupting that synaptic nanosecond and saying, wait, is this really a threat? And in that moment, we begin to couple ourselves, right? With the limbic part of our brain and our executive functions are all a part of that, and a different set of chemicals are being released, or that instinctive immediate release. If we get into that gap, do you see we can take a breath? We can go, wait, I don't need to be defensive right now. I don't need to react right now. And immediately, no more chemicals are being released that are in alignment with that, right? Some who knows, neutralizing chemicals, whatever else is. And you can feel, right? You feel your heart rate go down. You feel your palms stop sweating. You feel yourself go, oh, okay, wait, maybe I should. So from a whole nother way of looking at it that really understands that consciousness is a reality. It's not, consciousness isn't the product of the brain, that consciousness is a reality. That's what gives us the ability to act in that moment. Our free will might only take up 2% of our actions, but those are the most important 2%. And then let me just finish that thought. As we do that, do you see we build a new habitual pattern? And at some point, we can actually let that response be handled by our habits. We can put it back on automatic. Do you see? Because we've trained our brain to go a different place. Does that make sense? So instead of immediately becoming defensive, we've trained ourselves to become curious. Or instead of immediately starting to blame and say how horrible, we've trained ourselves to think from connection and compassion. And the whole chemical response in our body is going to be different. So the science of mind lands solidly in that camp. Solidly in the camp of those people who access it that way, right? But there is a fair amount of psychology, IO psychology, personal psychology, and science that is seeking to prove or seeking that does all of the experiments with the fundamental thesis that it's all materially based. So that's the difference. Right? And part of what we get to do is we get to say what makes the most sense to us, what corroborates our own personal experience, or what would we like to try and entertain that there's this possibility that we do actually have efficacy. Otherwise, why would you do any self-improvement? Why would you go to church? Why would you want to learn about spirituality? Why would you do anything? If you're just stuck with purely a physically automated response. That's exactly what this is saying we're not. Great question. All right, we got a question in the back and then one in the front.
I'd like to share an example. My name is Barb.
Hi, Barb.
What you were just saying. Last year, I was a volunteer in a grade school in 5th grade, and for whatever reason, the way the teacher dealt with students in the main classroom while she was trying to work one-on-one just felt somewhat disrespectful and pushed, and my skill just kind of didn't take that. So this past year, I've moved down to pre-K and had a wonderful experience. Pre-K is moving to another school next year, so I went and I shadowed 3 kindergarten teachers to see if I might want to move up with them. And one of those teachers dealt with her students in that same somewhat disrespectful way from 5th grade, and I immediately felt it. And when I had a choice of 3 teachers to volunteer with next year, I did not choose that one person.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Barb. Thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. I love that. Right? A simple choice that we get to make. We have 2 comments here. We have up here in the front, and then Willie, and then Ross. Oh, and you've got somebody online. Okay, so hang on just a minute, Willie. Let's go to somebody online, and then we'll come back so we can bounce back and forth.
All right, so I'm going to ask Marjorie, go ahead and unmute yourself and join us.
Good morning.
Good morning, Marjorie.
How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. So I have a question about the suffering and the individual. He seems to be talking a lot about individuality.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to relate this to how an individual might respond in terms of what is happening in the collective. For example, when we're being threatened by information and we see patterns of climate change, for example, and we know, or we think we know, or we have some sort of idea, when we see these patterns, that we seem to be keep on doing the same things and
Right.
getting the same results. So we're not heeding
Right?
the instinctual response would be to do something different.
That maybe not. Maybe the instinct is to hold on to power at all costs. Could be another instinctual response, right? We might say automatic response or unconscious response.
Yes. So I'm just trying to understand how can we, as an individual, have an influence, or how can we contribute towards the societies?
Yeah, it's a great question. Absolutely. And we over and over and over again remind ourselves that it's the same we do in the collective, the same thing we do with ourselves. We make choices. We think about it without fear. We expect good to come. We look for evidence that it's actually working. We stop focusing on what's wrong. We look at what's right. And we recognize that we are not only our own individual subjective, subconscious mind, but that we're a part of the one mind. And we know, as Carl Jung said, that we're a part of the collective unconscious. And everything we think is not only for us, but it is for the whole. And so more and more and more people are thinking along those lines, and more change is in fact happening. It's just not in the media. So stop watching the media and start ferreting out the information that shows you that it is in fact happening. The price of electric batteries in China has now gone down by such a significant amount. They expect in 2025, they expect the purchase of anything that uses batteries to exceed fossil fuel and coal combined next year. But we don't see those statistics. You have to go looking for them. So let's stop telling the story that we're not doing anything about it, that we're not heeding it. This is an inaccurate statement. It's not true. So I focus on the deep creativity of humanity, that we are in fact individualized expressions of the one, and the one is always for life. And so I search out all the ways in which that's happening, and I feed myself that. And then I'm adding that expectation into the collective consciousness. That's how we do it, just like exactly the way we do it in our own lives. So it's a great question, Marjorie, and we all have to practice it. All right, so we're coming here to up front here.
Okay, I'm Willie, and I remember my accident when I was 18. I woke up from a dead sleep and totally braced my body.
Wow.
And I was hurt horrendously. Mm-hmm. And I suffered a lot. Mm-hmm. Years later, I was in the car with a friend. It was icy. The roads were icy. We were driving home. And I had laid my chair back because I had a really massive headache. And so I was trying to just relax. And he said something that let me know he was losing control of the car. And I thought, we're going to wreck. And my first response was to do something. And then I went, no, relax. Just relax. We went over the guardrail, down this ravine. And I wasn't even bruised anywhere.
Yes.
I just kind of rolled with it.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right there.
It was amazing.
Between stimulus and response, there's that moment. Am I going to go the way my body would habitually go, which is an automatic response, or am I going to interrupt it? That is a brilliant story. Thank you, Willie.
Thank you.
Beautiful. It's a great example. And it's hard to do. Okay, let's not pretend that this is easy. It is hard to do. This is why the discipline of our minds is so important. It doesn't happen because, it makes me feel good. This is a discipline to, in the middle of when every part of you wants to brace or retreat or withdraw, to say, no, I'm going to be relaxed, I'm going to be at peace, I'm going to be loving, whatever it is, right? That is a disciplined response. Beautiful. Thank you.
My name is Ross. A couple of things. 1887, William James, supposedly one of the founders of psychology, said, human consciousness is an accidental excretion of the brain. Made me laugh out loud. And
despite all of his other brilliance, yes, he really, yes, it's really extraordinary.
It's hard to argue that.
He said that.
Early in my career, we intensively studied behaviorism and applied it in schools. It was dramatically effective. I mean, you talk about bringing unruly children into control in minutes. And all the professionals who were really dedicated to it eventually stopped doing it. I've always wondered why.
Well, think about what controlled children look like, and then think about what kind of adults they grow up into.
Well, the programs we were doing, they were not controlled like that. They had consequences that they could choose, and there was a reward. So it was really, the behavior was reinforced. Appropriate school behavior was reinforced. It wasn't like they were mindless machines. But it all went away.
Yeah, because there's a deep understanding that too much of that robs the children of their ability to be creative.
Well, unruly behavior also robbed them of their opportunity to learn something.
Of course, right? There's always a balance. It doesn't mean that behaviorism doesn't work. But there's a deep need for children to make mistakes. There's a deep need for them to actually be able to manage chaos and creativity. Absolutely. And if we are forever making chaos and creativity wrong, then a child never knows how to self-regulate, never knows about the creativity that comes from that. And it is a delicate balance. All the moms in the room, all the dads in the room, we all know that. Right? So there's a opportunity for the wholeness of it. And I think it's what happens is when it gets really one-sided. But I wasn't there, so I don't know. I chose not to do any of that. I was going to go into IO psychology and get my degree and all of that. And when I discovered that it was 100% behaviorism, it's all about statistics and all about reward. And I was like, because I believe that people do have free will. Otherwise, really, what's the point?
The curiosity for me was, how come everyone gave it up?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to ask.
I'm not going to think about it anymore.
No.
It's too complicated.
Well, but it would be interesting to ask because there's obviously a reason why everybody gave it up. Okay, right over here. We just give you the microphone so the people on a line can really hear you.
All right, my name's Gordon.
Hi, Gordon.
And Willie, that was a great example. And I'll give you another one because you said it is. And I agree with you that it is a challenge to develop that ability. If you drink a lot, those kind of people walk away from car accidents too. So.
Yes. Well, and I knew that. That is exactly right.
So there might be the idea of being able to suspend and just
relax.
You're going to walk away from a lot of things. The other thing that I think is fascinating in our discussion and what Ernest talks about, he says, you can take the stock market, and there's people that every day base their mood upon where the stock goes up, where the stock goes down. So I think you can apply that. You can apply it to climate change. If you see the news is saying all these horrible things or all these things, what Ernest says is if you really buy into the science of mind and you realize that you have the ability to modify your conditions and control your environment with everything around you, if you do that, it doesn't matter what the stock market's going to do, you will be protected. And Charles Barker gave a story about this lady that came to him, and he told her this same thing, and she was naive enough to believe what he said. This was in the middle of the Depression, back in the 30s. She said, my goal, I want to be a pastry chef. When in the Depression, people are starving to death, and pastry chefs are far down the list of what people are going to get a job for. But she persevered, and he said, you just hold that thought, and you just don't let anything, no doubt, no uncertainty. You just see it so clearly, and you just realize the environment is bringing what you need to you. Well, to make a long story short, she was entered a contest, and out of 10,000 people, she was chosen to go to this school, and from that, she became a pastry chef working at hotels the rest of her life. So.
Yes, thanks, Gordon. These are the great conversations and the great stories that we have. The challenge with these stories is that they are individual, right? And as Marjorie pointed out, we have matured to the point where we realize it's not just about my good. So yes, I can actually do that. I can say, well, I don't care about the rest of you. As long as I have my money and my life and my health and my happiness, I'm using the science of mind. And we're now moving beyond that. We have to use it for the collective as well, because we don't live in an isolated universe. And when we contribute our same expectation, if we as humanity, as more and more people recognize that we can in fact make a difference, we can in fact do things, and we can see it positively. We can expect humanity to wake up and handle climate change. The more of us who have that expectation, the more we're contributing to that collective consciousness, just as that woman is doing it individually, right? And so science of mind is really maturing beyond the just me, my life, into recognizing that my life is actually embedded in the whole. And our life, if the planet doesn't survive, and if people are going to be constant, I mean, you can see it this year. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The extreme in weather it's a partial response starting to climate change, right? So I would ask each one of us: are we recycling? Are we buying less gas? Are we moving to EVs? Are we making the difference? Are you driving less? Are we actually doing out of our desire to be about the support of the collective? It's the same thing, right? You have to see it in your consciousness. You have to allow the consciousness to change your behavior, which that's the part we don't want to do, right? We don't understand that it starts with us, right? So that lady, she had to believe it, and then she had to go to school. It didn't just magically happen. Oh, she had to believe it, go to the contest, and then go to the school. We think, well, I'm just going to, do my spiritual mind treatment, and then somebody else will fix it. We're all a part of it. We're part of it in consciousness, and we're part of it in our actions, choices, and behaviors, right? It's the whole kit and caboodle, just like it is for us individually. But doing it for just ourselves is no longer enough. But we don't deny that we're doing it for ourselves either. It's for both. Okay, last comment, and then we're going to close for today.
Well, actually, the comment is in response to what you were talking about. We do have a class that's coming up that Reverend Karen Fry will be here doing a workshop on about this. It's Raymond Charles Barker's book, The Power of Decision. That's going to be happening on June 9th from 1 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. And it's a hybrid, too, so it's a good experience. And it kind of revolves around what our topic here is today.
Good.
And on that note, too, I do want to mention we have last-minute sign-ups available for the one-day meditation retreat that's happening this Saturday with yours truly, Dr. Petra Weldis. And it's going to be an in-person, all-day event. You need to treat yourself to something special this weekend. This is the opportunity for you. Yeah, creating an inner oasis, just taking a little space and time out of the busyness of our lives. So do join me. Join us today for our celebration, and we'll see you next week. Have a beautiful week. Bye for now.
All right.
Yay! Yay! Yay, yay. Good job.